This program is powered by the Virtual.Show, making your offline events virtual. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of WEBIT Virtual, Dr. Plamen Russev.
I can't say how grateful I am to all the WEBIT community from all around the world joining us for another WEBIT Virtual meeting with the brightest, bravest, and most exciting minds in the world, and of course part of the digital entertainment and media industry, which week we celebrate today here and the whole week at WEBIT Virtual. You know that yesterday we had really exciting discussions with a number of participants from the virtual digital entertainment and media world. We had top executives from CBS and we had Informa and Media and a number of global leaders in specific verticals. Today, we continue this. The wrap up from yesterday is there are winners, there are losers. Currently, there are more to win. There is more to win than to lose, but it takes real life, true adaptation to the new virtual realities. And if not the case, it will be a terrible result. There are content producers producing their own channels, being tremendously successful, like Disney, becoming number 3 in UK, for example, after Netflix and Amazon for just a couple of months. This means that Disney will stop producing content, most probably for all the other distributors that were relying until now for their content, and this most probably will be the case with many others. The industry is reimagining currently. I wouldn't say disrupting because I hate that word, but we have some of the top industry leaders here with us today, and you will hear more. Today we have a bunch of great, fantastic leaders. I'm talking about forward thinkers and top CEOs of global media, of technology companies that will share their vision for the future of the digital entertainment and media. Without further ado, I'm inviting my first very special guest to the studio.
Mike Federle is a 25-year veteran of the media industry and the Chief Executive Officer of Forbes, one of the world's most instantly recognizable brands and one of the largest media companies by audience. Under Mike's direction, Forbes continues to expand its reach, making its name synonymous with success in almost every country around the world.
Hello, Mike. It's such a pleasure to have you at the WEBIT Virtual Studio.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I've watched what you've done over the years and I've always been impressed. So I'm happy to join you for this event.
I'm very grateful for your generosity, Mike, and you're not sharing this for the first time. I'm always a special guest of your events. Actually, I feel special being a guest of your events, both in Davos and everywhere. So, and I have so much respect for Forbes and for the media and for the whole business that you are responsible of and overseeing during the years. So we're the one being so grateful to have you in our virtual world now. The COVID pushed us in a weird direction, or I would say the right direction, who knows. Instead of having one event per year, we have 3 to 4 per week. That's how it is these days. So without further ado, Mike, I would love to hear your opinion on a number of topics. I would like to see how many people are with us currently. I would like to know how many people do we have already with us. I will hear it later. Now, my questions for you, Mike, are line up like a full page. And we have our audience that can use hashtag WEBIT to ask their questions to our esteemed guests. But I would like to really hear from you. How do media adapt? Do media adapt first, and how they adapt to the new realities, and how do you wield your voice in order to add value in this new world while looking for directions? We have over 8,000 people with us. Thank you all joining us. Mike, back to you.
Well, thanks again. And yeah, happy to be here. And 8,000 people, that's an impressive number. So congrats, Sarah, as well. You know, you say, how have we adopted? I would say the media business you haven't learned to adopt by now, or by the time COVID first hit, you haven't succeeded, because this has been a business that has had to pivot and change and adapt with the times. And so when COVID hit and everyone went from work from home, which for us was this second week of March, I think we were well prepared to kind of, you know, be innovative and flexible in the way that we do things. And just like you, one of our big areas that we had to adapt and pivot to was our live events, which is a significant piece of our business. And we have, since March, produced 18 virtual events and are on track to do about 50 virtual events. So that kind of adoption and being able to change quickly, I think, is built into the DNA of media these days, if you're a well-run media company, because we've had to do that for the last 25 years or so, ever since the advent of digital first came on. So I'd say we're in a good position, and we have to continue to just keep rolling with the changes that come on.
It's all about leadership, isn't it, Mike? And I hear you. We all go through these challenges, but at the end of the day, Forbes and I put here, of course, a number of other media. I would flatter myself to say also WEBIT is pretty much based on very clear values. So it's about leadership. What is the Forbes leadership with purpose?
Yeah, well, good question on that is, you know, all the way back, Forbes is 103 years old. We launched as a magazine back in 1917. And the mantra at the time from BC Forbes, our founder, was that business was intended to create happiness, not to pile up millions. And I think we've always, that belief is a mantra that we carry to this day, in that, you know, the idea of creating jobs that give people purpose, that give people, you know, direction in their own lives, as well as income in which to enjoy things, has always been our mantra. And we've always been on the forefront of celebrating success of those who have succeeded and those who want to succeed. So I think that 100 years of kind of editorial direction, we've remained true to it. And in this day, what's happening now with several of the disruptions, and with that I mean COVID, or more recently the social unrest going on, you know, leadership and business has to change. And with that, you know, I'm doing many small things in terms of communicating with my staff, over communicating with my staff probably. On Friday and Monday, I send out rather detailed notes of everything that's going on, to keep people connected and also to keep people aware of all the different levels of engagement that we're doing with our audiences, with our marketing partners, and also for our own mission of kind of creating a better world. Just this past week, we had a really terrific, our 9th annual philanthropy event with about 200 of our billionaires who have taken the giving pledge. We did it with Bill and Melinda Gates this year, and It was the first time we did it virtually. Robert Smith, who is the founder of the Vista Fund and the wealthiest Black African-American, I think $5.5 billion. He was one of our keynotes who kicked off this 2% plan that he has around creating, financial, being able to access finance for underserved communities.
So it's really exciting how we have the opportunity to, after 103 years, after all, right? 103 years of history, starting from the humble beginning of one magazine, now growing into the world's empire that you represent as a CEO. I'm sure that there is one question that is never forgotten to be asked, and hopefully you have the answer for it. So it's all about digital transformation. Media felt that need like 10 years ago. But now I think with that crisis, we've seen increase of consuming content by times. In China, we see 7 hours consumed content per day digitally. I was like shocked by that number. But let's talk about the importance of the digital transformation of all media and your leadership here.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the reason I came to Forbes invested in a company, a startup that I did called Techonomy, that back in 2010, they invested in us. I joined Forbes after a couple of, in 2012. And the reason I did was because Forbes had really bet the ranch. They made a huge bet on a digital transformation that changed out the whole newsroom, in which we built out a huge contributor network of experts who are vetted. And that was, to me, one of the only media companies that not only knew they had to change, but actually had the guts to make the gigantic move that they did. And that has led to huge success over the last 10 years, where we now, in this last month of May, I think we had close to 210 million unique users around the world, over 420 or so million page views across 70 countries in the world. We have 40 licensees in the world in I think about 17 or 20 different languages. So in those 10 years, really that digital base just so expanded our opportunity around the world and expanded the opportunity for us to do different things. That really has been transformative, and it's really separated us from a lot of the traditional competition we had and put us into a whole new sort of digital competition.
I hear you, and everyone after this particular call will be talking only about digital. But I have 2 very quick questions for you, which I would like to have also brief answers so we can involve the rest of the guests and then to have all together very challenging, I'm sure, and very interesting panel discussion. My 2 questions for you range from, first, how did the COVID-19 crisis pushed the whole media group to pivot, and which way was the pivot? And the second one, how has the Forbes newsroom and the editorial team shifted its coverage during this recent crisis, which still ongoing, and we never know when is it going to end? But let's go for the first one. So did you pivot, and which way?
So they're actually related, the 2 questions. I mean, the first pivot was the physical organization all went work from home or distributed. And that went surprisingly well. And we use, our teams had already been familiar with all of the collaborative software and whether on Slack or Zoom or Google Meets and Microsoft Teams. We were on all of them. So that transition actually went very smoothly. The biggest thing, though, that we did was change the newsroom out. We really tripled the size of our news desk, because when you think about what became essential versus non-essential, which was kind of a big term in COVID, our kind of news on business, investing, technology really became a must-have news, as people wanted information on how to deal with first COVID and the crisis itself, and then all the stimulus packages that came out of it. And by creating that news desk and really and doubling down on our news, we changed, and it became a real focal point for readers looking for information. And that's where, for the last 4 months, we've had record audiences, and there seems to be no end in sight. This month is tracking to be right there with those record months that we've had. So that transformation, I think, was most important in the newsroom.
Thank you so much, Mike. I would like to say with open heart that there were so many great journalists from your team that were joining us here during the virtual events, and of course beforehand. It's literally a level, and I'm very grateful for having Forbes as one of the landmarks. And I hear you, and I know what you're doing, and I'm sure that very soon, once we jump into the future together with all of our guests, we will hear more from your vision of where the future lies with the media. But without further ado, with your permission, I would like to introduce my next guest in the studio.
John Canning is the executive producer for new media and experiential for Digital Domain. He brings a career that has spanned the technology and methodology for creating and delivering media, games, and immersive experiences, from concept to consumer and customer. John has endeavored to help companies and causes not only tell their stories through dynamic media, but also leverage disruptive and transformative technology to maximize their creative impact.
John, welcome to WEBIT Virtual Studio. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, and it's delightful to be here being a virtual term after all.
Oh yes, I was like, virtual? Come on, I mean, it's our life. It is real. But then all our consultants said, no, it should go for virtual. People should understand it. And here we are, virtual. We have over 10,000 people. We should thank Mike for this. He raised the bar. Fantastic. Welcome to all of you, wonderful WEBIT community. Thank you for joining us, and keep on joining us on that particular event on the future of digital entertainment and media. And I would say one of the best people to ask about this is my guest now. John, I have questions which will bring us to the future. Your bio has been already announced, and for those who maybe haven't been aware of your vast biography, will be now. I would like to jump into the future with you. We step on the history. We talk about the media with over 100 years of history. Now let's talk about the future. Immersive technologies that will make the boundaries between real and virtual more vague and more, let's say, you can't feel it anymore. So what is your take on that?
I like to say that we're blurring those lines. Interestingly enough, and you got to find a silver lining in some of these crises, is that a lot of the technologies and a lot of the ideas that folks were playing around with, which were interesting or sidelined, the virtual conferences, the the ability to get together in the sort of the matrix, if you will, was always oh, that's interesting, but yeah, we don't have to. We'll fly to a conference. Suddenly now we're all finding ourselves forced into advancing this technology, trying new concepts out, finding what doesn't work. I'm sure many of the viewers out there have been into some kind of virtual conference, maybe in VR. You find what works, what doesn't work. So the pushing on the acceleration pedal, if you will, of these technologies, trying them out, what does work. I mean, the reality is that being able to be here in a video with all of you is still super powerful. I can see you smile, you can emote. What we will need to do is, if we are doing this in a purely digital fashion where we're all potentially avatars, is we have to bring those same capabilities to that. We need that kind of interaction. If we're going to try to supplant or enhance the meeting face to face, we still have to give some of that we expect face to face, right? It's the subtle of the emotions, the body language, the leaning in. How do we bring that to a virtual environment when we meet? Now, I would say this is also super powerful because we're all able to get together. Some of us could have flown there. Some of us wouldn't have been able to make the conference. But now many people are being able to sit in their own homes or a cafe or wherever and join these conferences and being engaged and join the conversation. And it can be much more of a worldwide conversation. So I do think some of these things are empowering us to move to that next step. I spend a lot of time at Digital Domain. I like to say, if we do our work, you don't know we've done our work, right? The ability to do amazing visual effects on a film screen, and to fool you and make you think that that's a real character or a real water or things like that. Well, now we're taking that to other screens, right? And being able to do that in VR, AR, on a hologram, being able to create believable digital characters is really being pushed. And like I said, I think, fortunately or unfortunately, being accelerated by this current time.
I would like to have now Mike joining us, and the two of us having this, let's say, view on the future. Now, John representing the immersive technologies in their best, and Mike, you on the very stable basis of presenting the news as it is for the past 100 years. So can you please give us your bold ideas on the future of media? John, I know it will be easier for you if I ask you for the future of entertainment, but let's see here your bold visions, how they are going to align each other. Mike, where do you see the next frontier of the future of media?
Well, as John said, what I see is this merging of immersive technologies. Whether you're grounded, as we are in our history, in the printed word or the digital printed word, it's still now more than ever, we're trying to figure out ways and to kind of create content and engage with audiences in more impactful ways. And that's where that immersive technology, I think, will come in. And certainly COVID and our pivot to all virtual events, I don't think we'll ever go back from that, right? And those virtual events, we're experimenting with a lot of different platforms that allow us to do things, as John was saying, that create kind of that emotive experience or that live experience where you actually feel like you're in a room together. And I can only imagine that technology and those experiences are going to get better and better. And even when we do go back to live events, I would imagine every one of our live events will also have a very much a virtual element. Although, to your point, Plamen, we'll call that something different than virtual, because it will just be And so I see the direction going that way. And then also more and more, I know this is a series on entertainment for the most part. You don't often think of news as entertainment, but we'll see a lot more of our products be more consumer oriented and more towards consumer revenues as well as consumer oriented. And that will kind of merge more and more with entertainment, whether that's actual film production or ways of telling stories in new formats. So I very much see there's an intersection of the two.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, to be honest, John, before you say, I just want to give you a little bit of tough time. And I will share very openly data from WEBIT. So we see approximately 21 minutes average time spent on our event, which was phenomenally big number for us in the beginning. But then we saw that for the past, let's say, month and a half, this is the number that's more or less on average, which is good. It's fine. But can you imagine that you put these virtual glasses, headsets, and you keep them for 20 minutes or 1 hour or 2 hours? I mean, it will be pain for your neck. So I don't see virtual immersive experiences coming out there on the market unless the headsets become like 10 times lighter. What do you think?
Oh, no, I completely agree. I mean, in the interesting part is not, as you say, let's steer away from entertainment for a second. Because as I look at my job, it extends way beyond entertainment. It is creating, we're taking what we've learned in film and television, but we're pushing it to other mediums. And the need for believable, authentic characters. I mean, we could go into video games. We could talk about creating news. And it's just like the virtual will go away, just like the concept of digital, because everything is digital. When we talk about virtual, what I mean is being able to go into these environments. And you're absolutely right. As soon as you put a headset on for a long period of time, your head hurts. But these are all stages of development, right? And we have to move both distribution, the content creation, and the hardware technology forward, all in sort of, they're all doing this. And we move all of these things forward because the ergonomics have to get better. The on your face, right? My glasses are comfortable. I need that ability to get lighter, more flexible, to be able to go into these environments. And until we do, we still have those high barriers to entry. But what's interesting is we're pushing on those now where people are finding out, oh, I want to attend a virtual conference, except, yeah, I'm not going to leave this necessarily on my head for an hour and a half unless it's more comfortable, unless it's easier to use, better connected. I think, an upcoming guest is going to be really talking about how we're starting to even leverage more of the cloud-based technologies, where cloud used to be a great idea or an interesting thing to explore. Now we're being pushed as businesses to go, tell me more, because we are virtualizing. And virtual meaning the no longer necessarily physical, co-located at the office every day. And how do we use and what tools we use, we're constantly exploring. My job is just to make them look better.
So, but in order to make the connection with the media, where do you see, John? And Mike is here with us also. So I would like his reflection. Where do you see the next 2-3 years of increased content consumption? Obviously, predominantly video, but further most probably virtual in the case of immersive. Where do you see the media? Where do you see media like Forbes? I had a couple of days ago, your counterpart, Mike, Alan Murray, sending me an email saying very generously that he admires the way we pivoted to digital. So where is the future of media, traditional, great, amazing, stable media like those? John.
Are you asking John? Go ahead, John, and I'll chime in.
Sorry, I wanted John to give you some hard time, Mike. That's the.
Oh no! Look. I mean, to me, I've I've lived in both the traditional television world and a lot in the immersive interactive entertainment space and interactive media. And to me, I love the blurred lines. I love being able to blur the concepts of what we would consider traditional long form media with the interactive media. I look at immersive and interactive. Not everything that is immersive is interactive and vice versa. But it's being able to run that slider. One of the best areas, right, and one of the most interesting areas to me right now is this confluence of the fidelity of the video world meeting the real-time engine world, and what we can do with that, and the kinds of stories we can tell. Being able to be flexible with your intellectual property to say, I'm going to create a video game, a long-form piece, other kinds of media, I think is really the area that we're exploring. And again, we get to push on that right now.
Mike, do you imagine having your real immersive virtual event anytime soon? I mean, getting the people in there. There are some currently virtual platforms that are kind of suggesting this avatar experience, but I'm very grateful to Forbes for positioning WEBIT and the virtual show, the platform we are using, among the top in the world. So do you really see your next year or next 2-year events really virtual, or you will still keep to the experience, the maximum immersion, but using the current platforms?
I think the latter. I don't think we'll be in a place with truly immersive in terms of, for all the limitations you said, the hardware is not there yet. And also the experience isn't there, and that's what's key. To go back there to the question you asked, John, people often get confused. Forbes' product is journalism. It's not technology. It's not digital media. It's journalism, and it's trusted, well-written journalism. And we will use whatever distribution method out there, and also storytelling methods. And more, they're engaging in an increasing variety of storytelling methods. That could be something simple like a podcast as opposed to a printed page. Or it could be, integrating video and integrating a live event with a Zoom distribution or something like that. So what we're trying to do, our product remains at the same as it's always been, as journalism. It's just what we're trying to work with our journalists is, how do you tell this story in all of its potential formats and all of its potential impact, and in all the ways that consumers want to get it. So as far as an immersive, like a truly immersive avatar-like event, when that becomes a reality, we'll be there, I'm sure, and we'll be there with great journalism kind of leading the way.
That would be great. And Mike and John, we have so many questions for you coming up. So Janie from New York, she would like to, she's from media industry business, she says, she would like to know if, and this Mike for you, if COVID has brought more viewers on your platform, maybe competition, who knows?
Yes. So again, beginning in March, the story was COVID. And as we produced a lot more stories on COVID, its effect on business, its effect on medicine, its effect on, all the various stories that we did, it definitely drove record traffic for us. Unlike a lot of competitors, though, we have seen that traffic increase in April, and that was largely driven both by COVID, but also by the stimulus programs. And everyone wanted to understand whether it was PPP, or the government, the $1,200 check, the $600 supplement. And people wanted to understand all the stimulus programs and the effect on the economy there. So that continued to drive huge traffic. And we're seeing that continuing now as variations on the stimulus continue. And now around all the social injustice around Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and its effect on business. And we're seeing that huge shift in corporations that hopefully will be a lasting shift, and is again a core theme that we have been talking about for years, which is this more inclusive capitalism or reimagining capitalism. Davos called it stakeholder capitalism. And so all those themes have kind of converged to create both new audiences for us and also to underscore the importance of a trusted journalism or a trusted brand. So yes, we're seeing huge traffic increases, but we've maintained that now for 3 full months, going on 4 months.
Thank you so much, Mike. Mentioning Davos, our friends from Davos World Economic Forum invited WEBIT to become their strategic partner along with WHO on the platform for making the next steps in hopefully post-COVID better world. So we were very delighted to accept their invitation, and we will be looking for more and more opportunities to spread the news and to work on a real collaborative platform on involving as many as possible partners on creating this desirable future we all go together for. And John, I have a question from Paul Allen. Paul is asking if you think that television will become immersive in the way you discuss in the next 3 to 5 years.
I think the important thing to remember, and I meant to say this earlier, is we have to separate out several things. TV used to be described as both a piece of content on a particular viewing surface distributed in a particular way. And we have to remember now that the concepts of distribution are separated from the way we're viewing content from the type of content. So TV is, as an episodic form of content, is certainly evolving and growing. Are there interactive aspects of it? Absolutely. I think if you look at what Netflix is pushing, because they have ubiquitous coverage on their platforms, they're able to introduce and play with this concept of interactive media. I think the line's going to get blurred. Will all television go that way? I don't think so. But I think what's fabulous is we're seeing an explosion of the types of content and the ways we view that content. And that's the thing we have to keep in mind, is it isn't the ending of one form and the beginning of another. It's adding yet another type of media content into this mosh pit of media, if you will. And I think that's the important thing to remember. It's like Forbes, being a journalistic endeavor, will continue to push the boundaries of where they push that content out. But it's the type of content they're creating and not necessarily the distribution method.
Gentlemen, I hate the moment when I have to say that we have to put a final stop on this particular discussion. It's been fantastic to have 2 leaders, visionary leaders in our studio, discussing leadership with purpose, the immersive technologies, and overall the future of media, which obviously looks bright. Forbes has tripled the number of journalists in their news desks, and being the absolute answer to the needs of the changing world, where people needed to know what to do, how to do, what kind of reactions and next steps are needed. And we see how the future is shaped by immersive technologies, which we have been discussing with John. And I would like to thank you both for joining us here in WEBIT Virtual. And again, very grateful for your time and the thoughts you shared with our WEBIT community. I very much look forward to see you soon, whether again virtually back here in our studio, hopefully in person. Thank you, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And without further ado, I look forward to our next 2 guests in the studio. We have a special friend who's been an important player, an advisor, I would say, to our steps in virtualization on the way. And another special participant on the market. We were talking about technologies in the first part of the discussion. We were talking about where the market is heading. Now let's talk about how these technologies shape the future. Let me introduce our next participants.
Arash Pendari is the creative director and product evangelist at Vion Labs, the company he founded with the mission to enhance the user experience for TV and movie lovers across the globe. Over the last decade, the company has developed truly unique content discovery tools and experiences powered by AI.
Arash, welcome. Finally.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting us.
Come on. You've been a trusted advisor for me in the very beginning. I needed your advice on a number of topics. I will be honest with you. When we started this video content production in that, I would say for us, very immersive way in this virtual studio, we were absolute beginners. I mean, I've been virtualizing WEBIT as an experience, but offline experience. And now we had to be very innovative. And I would say it was a tough job. So I'm grateful for your initial advices and ideas. You were someone I was sharing with pleasure. And we have someone else that I would like to join us, and together, because you also work together to challenge the boundaries of possible and impossible in the future of digital entertainment. Let me introduce our second guest in this part.
Hanno Basse is the CTO for Azure Media and Entertainment of Microsoft. His work is focused on bringing Microsoft's cloud, edge, and AI technologies to bear on today's problems and tomorrow's opportunities. Mr. Basse has been awarded 28 patents and was named a Fellow of the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers in 2014. Hanno is a member of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences.
Hanno, hello.
Hi,
thank you for joining.
Good. Thank you for having me.
I mean, I'm the one to be grateful. I mean, look at the beauty of the minds we bring together. And I was feeling lucky already by having you all at every in-person WEBIT. But now I have the pleasure and the honor to have these amazing discussions almost every other day. So thank you both for being with us. Arash, the both of you are great to go with numbers. Until now, we had visionary speeches, we had some ideas, and obviously shared experience in the Forbes case with over 100 years. I would love you guys to go deep into the future of TV and media industry. And I know you have some numbers prepared for us, Arash. I would like to start with this, and then both of you with Hanno to get deeper into the topic. Maybe the studio can start the slides that we have prepared for Arash. All right, Arash, back to you.
Great, thank you so much. I mean, I thought we would focus a little bit more on the consumer today and a little bit of where the consumer is going in the future when it comes to personalization and where we can use like machine learning and AI to actually improve the consumer's life today. Because I mean, I think both Mike and John actually talked about how much content will be produced in the future as technology evolves, right? And right now, just during the pandemic, I've seen doubling the numbers. If just look at Nielsen's numbers, just doubling the amount of streams that we started. One of the most incredible numbers we had, April 4th, the Americans streamed 27 billion minutes of content on their TVs. That's 50 years of content in just one day. So, I mean, content is it's growing extremely fast. People are producing more content and there's much more choice out there. So the paradox of choice right now is that if we look at the numbers we have from the Ericsson Consumer Lab reports, we're spending 35%, a third of our time that we're in a service just trying to find what to watch. That is a lot. If we're spending 3 hours in a service, out of those 3 hours, 1 hour is going just to browsing. right?
No, that's the damage of the choice, the freedom of choices, for God's sake.
Yes, exactly. And I think this is the dilemma of on demand, right? Back in the days, we were much more lean back. We just came home, we relaxed and put on the TV, and we accepted what was on the TV. Now we're extremely picky. So it's very hard to settle with a choice. And we always usually end up with a safe choice, watching Friends, Big Bang Theory, or Seinfeld. Now, the problem is based on bad data. The whole industry today is depending on data that is not being fair to these amazing productions that we have out there. Now, I have a bunch of our viewers have seen the movie Martian. The movie Martian is a very isolated survival movie. Okay, it's a very slow science fiction movie. And in this case, in this specific service, you can see it had the genre drama and adventure connecting this movie, saying because you watched the movie Martian, you should watch Jeanne d'Arc, Robin Hood, or Stand By Me. This is, we all know, story-wise, very disconnected from each other. And the keywords available that describes the story, this amazing story that Ridley Scott created, is what? Botanist, gardening, duct tape, moral dilemma, spacewalk, and stab in the belly. I mean, yeah, that basically describes the movie Martian, I guess.
Sorry, I didn't understand what you're saying. What language did you use?
English. No, the words botanist, gardening, duct tape, moral dilemma, spacewalk, and stab in the belly are the keywords that are describing the movie Martian on IMDb today. So these are the plot keywords. These are the foundation data points that connects this movie to other movies. So recommendations today are based on this. So one of the most interesting things that machine learning and AI have enabled out there is that what you're seeing in front of you right now is a machine that have looked at a movie and predicted how we humans perceive that movie emotionally. So on the top graph here, you can see positive and negative emotions. On the bottom middle graph, you see the stress levels, and then in the bottom, you see the colors. And this is the movie Saving Private Ryan. And I'm sorry if I'm going to spoil this movie for a bunch of you guys out there. It's been out since 1998, so you had the chance to watch it. This movie, as you can see, starts on the beach of Normandy. Extremely negative scene, very, very stressful. I mean, I don't know if you guys seen that movie, but if you remember it, it was very hard and stressful starting scene. Then the whole middle, around 1.5 hours of the movie, we get to know the characters. It's a long story to get to know all of these characters and create relationships with them. So the whole final fight creates this extremely emotional fight where every one of these characters die or two of them dies. I'm not going to say which one of them dies. You get extremely sad. And this is incredible to see a machine can actually predict those emotions. So what we have done is that we train these AIs to actually predict how movies are, how the emotional structure of the movies are. Now, let's compare two war movies that usually are very close to each other. Saving Private Ryan and Black Hawk Down. Just look at the stress levels of these two movies. Saving Private Ryan starts with the stress scenes and then have the character building and ends with the stress scenes, right? Black Hawk Down constantly pushes you to feel that stress that the soldiers felt on the warfield. You're constantly stressed out. So every time they're in a dark scene, you actually feel safe because the soldiers are somewhere dark and they can't be hit. But this is what I think is interesting with this type of data points that we have never had access to before, but now can do thanks to machine learning and AI. Now, where the future is going is when this type of data start to be available, we can start understanding consumption behavior in a totally different way. Because one of the things I think, and we'll talk about this a little bit further on with Hanno, that I think it's like where cloud services and machine learnings can be used to is to understand what type of content I abandon, what type of content I watch at what time of the day. One of the things is I never watch stressful action movies after 9, 10 o'clock. It's just too stressful for me.
You should tell this to my kids.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, everybody in the household have a different behavior, right? Your kids watch stressful content in the evenings, you don't. The machine learning and AI can start understanding this and create a personal timeline. A personal stream for you that can understand in the morning, you don't want stressful content. In the evening, maybe that's when you want your stressful content. And try to adapt that to something that you can actually make. I mean, a lot of us have used something like Discover Weekly at Spotify or that type of services. Why not take the on-demand world that we're talking about and make personalized TV channels? So when me and you go to the same channel, we get different content, we get different ads, and they're adapted to what we have watched. In this case, we can see John and Julia at 9 o'clock, both of them on the same channel will get watch King Kong versus Birds of Prey. John gets King Kong because he watched Pacific Rim before. That is a high-stress, angry movie. And he watched Reign of Fire, which is also a high-stress, angry movie. So then the channel will give him a high-stress, angry movie at that time of the day. While Julia watched a much more mid-stress, joyful content, which that was a bit funny, humoristic. Then at the nighttime, and I can relate to John here, because when everybody goes to sleep, you watch that type of content that you don't want to show other people that you watch. A Star is Born, a romantic comedy, that you hide from the rest of the family. While Julia, she watches something way stressful. She watches an angry horror movie in the middle of the night. And this is what I'm trying to say is we're all different, right? We all have different behaviors. So doing the old ways of pushing everything to everybody, I think is extremely old school. I think with the technologies available today, we can do much, much more from that.
Arash,
and this is
you're giving me stressful time now. We have only 8 minutes to go, and I need Hanno with us as soon as possible. We need to tap into the beauty of his mind.
Welcome, Hanno, to the discussion.
Yeah.
Now, Arash, a little bit. I know you work together. So, how do we link the numbers, this phenomenal AI platform that you just showed us? You're basically tapping into our brain, and how? Okay, Hanno is representing Microsoft Azure Media. It's like a future of media from Microsoft point of view. CTO, obviously the right person to talk about it. Arash, back to you.
Hanno, I mean, your background, you come from the studios, right? You're a former CTO of Fox. You're now working at the back end. We're sitting with the technology of the cloud services of Microsoft. You have a great insight both on the production side and the streaming side. But let's start a little bit simple. Now we'll go a little bit more advanced. The first thing is like, what have you seen personally now during the COVID-19 when it comes to change of behavior and out there in the services?
Yeah, obviously a lot of the things that the whole group here already covered. I would just say that the pandemic really is accelerating a lot of trends that we've seen in the industry anyway. One of the major trends is that our audience is fragmenting more and more. You said people are looking, spending a third of their time just looking for the content to watch. That's because there's such an explosion of content out there, which actually means that it's much harder to aggregate an audience around a given type of content, and that has very little to do with the actual quality of the content. That has more to do with matching the right audience to this right piece of content, to this given piece of content. And that's a huge issue for the industry. It has been an issue for a while. And as streaming proliferates, that's basically the driving factor for this, that the content creators used to be in this wholesale model where we would all license our content to third parties and they would basically take it to the consumer. Now that just doesn't work anymore. Content creators need to have a direct relationship with the consumer. They need to understand what they're looking for, the behaviors you just described, so that they can actually make the right content and make it available for the right audience. Very, narrow targeting on content. And by the way, the other thing I want to say, what that also does is it really puts a lot of cost pressure on content creation. It used to be, you could make a movie basically, even in the mid 2000s, practically every movie that was made in Hollywood was profitable. That is by far no longer the case. And so that's a huge issue for the industry to solve.
Now, do you think that now during COVID-19 this will affect the production houses, obviously, but do you think like there will be an explosion of user created content that will take over from the studios now because the studios are lacking production? Or how do you think that affects the actual production line, like amateur versus professional?
Yes, we see a huge role in the production process right now. If you look at the production overall, it's basically a pre-production development, where you write a script and all that sort of thing. Then physical production, which is actors and cameras. Post-production, where you add all the visual effects, editing, what have you, and then the distribution. The physical production piece is the one that's currently, virtually stopped in many parts of the world, not everywhere, but here in the US for sure, even though there's slow reopening happening now, but there's still not much production going on because people are just really very worried. If you looked at a normal motion picture set, it's not uncommon to have several hundred people on a set at any given time, and I think that needs to change, because you can't keep your cast and crew safe when there's so many people in a concentrated area. And we're seeing examples like in the news every day where you have a lot of people together, people get sick, and so we're clearly seeing now, a huge demand from our customers here at Microsoft now. How can we, segregate the production a lot more? How can we isolate people, provide remote access to a lot of functions? Can we automate functions that currently are done by 5 people, or at the very least, make sure that these functions can be performed without physically having to be on set? And so those are the things that we're talking with our customers about right now. I think the good news, is production value is still key, and to provide really good production value is still very expensive. Especially now, you look at things, in the past, nobody thought twice about, going on location. You have these James Bond movies that go, basically you have to be on every continent for at least 10 minutes per movie. I think in the future that's going to become a lot more complicated, and so people now are, companies like Digital Mania with John there, looking at, okay, can you replace physical locations with virtual locations, in front of a green screen or in front of these LED walls now, and I think that's clearly what we're going to see going forward, big time. And again, these like John also said earlier, these ideas all existed before, but the pandemic is really, accelerating these in a big way.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question for both of you now, because we have to wrap up, but still we will expand a few minutes. So Arash, because you're representing a great business that is obviously exploding, we were discussing with you, what do you think the streaming services need to do to differentiate in the post-COVID-19 environment?
I mean, obviously the services need to differentiate out there, right? Right now at the average, I think we're staying at 3 to 4 or 5 services per household. You know these numbers better than I do, Hanno. But I think like to differentiate out there, first of all, content is one of the keys. And second of all, to make sure technology, personalization, to give discovery tools. If I come into your service and I can't find what I watch within the first couple of minutes, I'm going to leave to the next service. So I think make sure that I find what I watch quickly, and obviously have great content like HBO and Netflix has. What do you think,
Hanno?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I think key is going to be to serve up the right meal based on what people's appetite is at that given moment, and that is the biggest issue out there. I actually don't think there's a lack of content. To the contrary, there's actually such a barrage of content now that there's something in there for everybody. But it's, even from my personal experience, I can't tell you how many times I started watching something and like, this is just not worth my time because I'm worried about what I'm missing,
Yeah.
And we see this in general. And I think one of you mentioned earlier, the democratization of content creation, that is clearly happening. I don't know that that's necessarily accelerated by the pandemic. It might be, but clearly, especially also that's my job here at Microsoft now, as we're transitioning content production into the cloud. That means you don't have to put an upfront investment in your infrastructure anymore. Yeah. You don't have to actually put an upfront investment in your production tools anymore, because you can basically pay as you go for all these services. That is going to make it a lot easier for any talented person out there to access these resources. Teams, globally dispersed teams, to collaborate together and create content. So we're clearly going to see that too. Although I think the conditions for that aren't 100% there yet, but I think we're going to see this in the next 2 to 5 years.
Thank you so much. I can't say how grateful I am for both of you joining us, bringing more numbers to the visionary discussion we had. I saw in the studio that Mike is taking some notes while Arash was presenting this sentimental and stress analysis. Mike, what were the notes that you took? If not a secret, of course.
No, I love the macro view of how much time 50 years in one day of content.
It's phenomenal.
And I can totally relate to the amount of time that you spend searching for that content. But for me, I'd love to get a copy of the presentation if you're cool with that. And also,
of course.
Because I think looking at that macro view in other mediums is interesting. So, because there's definitely been an explosion.
Now, I can imagine how would such graphic represent, for example, the breaking news sessions. And I think that would be very interesting for Mike and all media. Beyond, of course, discussions about content and digital entertainment, I still believe that news will be like breaking means for media to be out there beyond entertainment itself. Gentlemen, I feel obliged and absolutely grateful for all of you joining us here. Wonderful WEBIT community. I'm wondering if you're spending 1/3 of your time choosing if you're going to be with us or not every other day with WEBIT Virtual. Hopefully not. And this amazing discussion gave you one more good reason not to miss any of the WEBIT Virtuals, particularly the digital entertainment and media. Tomorrow, we shall be hosting, WEBIT is hosting the world's biggest startup challenge with 4,500 plus startups applying, with over $1 million award. This was the reason we also support other organizations like World Economic Forum. We work together with XPRIZE and others to support them with our extensive global innovation ecosystem. Tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow, we've selected only 3, the best of the digital entertainment and media startups and founders with a very good grounds already of success, approximately $1 million investment until now. And they will be presenting in front of 3 great investors. And me being investor also will be vetting as a 4th one. You can participate, you can vote for the audience award. The winner will join the $1 million award and will be receiving absolutely free exhibition space at WEBIT, an opportunity to meet with our pool of over 2,000 investors who participate. And then coming up next, we have the leading media forum with the participation of a senior editor from Forbes, Mike. We have BBC represented, BBC Global, and CNN Digital, all of them together in discussions on the future of digital entertainment and media. This is happening on Thursday. With this, and with 5 minutes delay, I would like to thank all of you for being with us. And I will see you exactly in 22 hours, 54 minutes, and 30 seconds.
This program is powered by the Virtual.Show, making your offline events virtual.